"Run, Claire, run!" my brother's voice rang out, not with panic, but glee. 1 minute we were laughing under the pines. The next he shoved me toward the dark, whispering, "Say hi to the grizzly." At first I thought it was a prank until I heard growling, not from him but from deep within the trees. Alone, disoriented, I realised I wasn't just lost. I'd been left. My brother hadn't snapped. He'd planned this. Why? That answer hides in the forest's silence, but I promise you this. If I make it out alive, I'll uncover everything. And he'll never see me coming. They called it tradition. Every August, like clockwork, we packed up the old green SUV and headed into the Sierra Nevada woods. My parents, Evan and me, campfire songs, marshmallows, stories under stars. It was supposed to be our sacred family ritual. There's no safer place than with family, my mother always said, smiling like it was gospel. I wanted to believe her. For years I did. That morning the sky was crystal blue, the kind that makes you think nothing bad could ever happen beneath it. Evan was already up, fiddling with the tent poles, whistling that same tune he always did. A slow, haunting melody, 4 rising notes, then a long fall. I didn't even realise I'd memorised it until much later, when it started echoing without him. "Morning, sleepyhead," he said, as I climbed out of the tent, stretching. I smiled. "Still doing that weird tune? You sound like a ghost from a western." He grinned, wide and lazy. Can't break old habits. Evan was the golden boy. Taller, stronger, funnier. When we were kids, he once pulled me back just as I slipped near a cliff edge. "I saved your life," he'd remind me every birthday. I used to think he said it with love. Now I wonder if it was something else, a tally mark. We set up camp near a clearing Evan insisted was perfect. Flat ground, water nearby, lots of trees for shade. It didn't strike me as odd then, but it should have. The ranger map had marked this area as inactive due to recent wildlife sightings. But Evan said it was just scare tactics. "You want peace and nature, right?" he said, slapping my shoulder. "Yeah, sure," I replied, trying to shake off the unease. He pulled me into a quick hug. Arms tight, fingers pressing into my shoulder blades. Not comforting, but calculating. When he let go, his eyes lingered on mine just a moment too long. Then the whistle again, that same melody. The day passed in fragments. My father cooking beans on the small stove, my mother brushing pine needles off the sleeping bags, Evan collecting firewood while humming. I watched them from a distance, the way you watch actors on stage. It all looked right, but something in the pacing, the way lines were delivered, felt rehearsed. That night, as we sat around the fire, Evan told a story about a hiker who went missing last summer. "They say the bears around here are evolving," he said, chuckling. "Smarter, hungrier." Everyone laughed. I forced a smile. I didn't like the way he looked at me when he said it. The next morning I woke up alone, not in the emotional, poetic sense. Literally, no one was at camp. The tents were up, the supplies still packed, but no voices, no footsteps, just bird song and the whisper of wind through trees. My chest tightened. "Evan," I called out, nothing. I wandered a bit, thinking maybe they went to the river, but 20 minutes passed, and the silence stayed. I walked farther than I meant to, following the path behind the camp. Trees grew denser, light thinner. Then I saw it. Carved into a tree, low to the ground, was a rough outline of a bear. A grizzly, unmistakable, the claws exaggerated, the eyes too wide. The style hit me like a punch. It was Evan's. From years ago, he used to draw animals like that in his notebooks. Same curved lines, same heavy shading. My stomach turned. A branch snapped behind me. I spun. No one. I walked back to camp, heart thudding. When I arrived, Evan was there, crouched by the fire pit, tossing dry leaves. "Where'd you go?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He looked up and grinned. "You wandered off. I figured I'd let you find your way back. You need to learn to handle things on your own." I stared at him. "You left me in the woods?" "You were gone 5 minutes. I was gone half an hour." He shrugged, then stood, brushing dirt from his knees. "It's good for you." Later, when I told Mum, she said, "He's just trying to toughen you up." My father chuckled. "You always were too sensitive." That night, I couldn't sleep. Evan was whistling again, lying in his sleeping bag like nothing had happened. I stared at the roof of my tent, counting the notes, trying to keep my breath steady. 3 short notes, 1 long. Rise, 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 fall. The next morning, I found a second drawing on another tree. This one wasn't just a bear. It was a bear crouching over something that looked like a person. I didn't say anything, but I knew then something wasn't right. Evan hadn't changed. He'd just stopped pretending to be good. The campfire flickered, casting shadows on the tent walls like ghosts shifting under canvas. That night, Evan told another story. This time about a teenage girl who went missing in these very woods. "Vanished without a trace," he said, face lit by flame. "All they found was her boot and a necklace hanging from a pine branch." "Jesus, Evan," I muttered. He grinned. "What? It's tradition, creepy stories in the woods." The worst part wasn't the story, it was the detail, the pine branch. I'd read something like that before. Years ago, in a local newspaper clipping my mum kept in a drawer. The girl's name was Tanya, 15, last seen near a camp in this region. "You always remember the gruesome bits," I said, trying to laugh. Evan shrugged. "It's the only way to keep people sharp." Later, when I brought it up with my mum, she waved it off. "Your brother's always had a dark sense of humour." "Yeah, but that story, it was real. Tanya something, right? Coincidence, Claire." I stopped pressing. That morning, I found my toothbrush in my hiking boot, my phone charger in the cooler, my hairbrush tucked inside my sleeping bag, wrapped like a gift. The first time, I thought I was distracted. The second, I thought maybe my memory was slipping. By the third, I knew Evan was moving my things. But why? I started testing myself, taking pictures of where I left items, counting steps back to camp, even setting little traps with pine cones to see if anything shifted. Something always shifted. I asked my dad. "Has anyone seen Evan messing with my stuff?" He blinked. "You sure you're not just tired? It's the altitude. Gets to the brain." I didn't answer. That evening, Evan handed me a water bottle, smiling. "Don't forget to stay hydrated. The woods play tricks on you." His words chilled me. I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, eyes on the tent roof, ears straining, and then, just before midnight, I heard it. The whistle. 4 rising notes, 1 long fall. Not from close, from somewhere behind the trees. I froze. "Evan?" I whispered, loud enough for the next tent to hear. "You awake?" No answer. I climbed out of my bag and stepped outside. His tent was zipped shut, still. I waited, breath held. In the silence, the whistle came again. The next morning, Evan acted normal, too normal. We set off on a trail, just the two of us. He said Mom and Dad were prepping lunch, that we should explore a bit. I didn't argue. I needed answers. About 30 minutes in, he stopped. "You ever wonder what it would feel like to disappear?" he asked. "What?" "Just walk away, leave everything behind, into the trees." "That's dramatic." He laughed, then reached into his pocket. "Here." He pressed a folded piece of paper into my hand and stepped back. I opened it. "Say hi to the grizzly." When I looked up, he was gone. I turned in circles, heart pounding. "Evan." Nothing. I pulled out the walkie-talkie. "Base, this is Claire. Come in." Static. "Dad? Mom? Anyone?" Only wind. I moved fast, trying to retrace our steps, but the trail had shifted. No markers, no voices, just the growing sense that I'd been led somewhere on purpose. I climbed a small ridge to get my bearings and slipped. Dirt gave way beneath me. I tumbled, hit a root, rolled into a shallow ditch. My ankle screamed. Limping, I followed the ridge's edge until I found a small rock outcropping, a place for shelter, maybe a signal. That's when I saw it. A shirt, torn, faded, stuffed into a crack in the stone. Dried brown stains along the front. I pulled it free, hands trembling. Near the collar, stitched faintly in red thread, were the initials L.S. Lisa Spencer. My mouth went dry. Lisa had been a friend of Evan's in high school. She'd gone missing the summer after graduation. Everyone said she'd run away with a boy from another town, but I remembered something else. Evan told me, years later, Lisa couldn't handle the woods. She panicked too easy. I stared at the shirt. This wasn't panic. This was something else. I sat down, knees weak. Had I imagined it all? The stories? The whistles? The misplaced items? No. This was real. Somewhere in the woods, pieces of truth were buried. And now I was among them. I didn't know how long I wandered. My ankle throbbed with every step, and the adrenaline that had kept me going was burning out fast. My throat was dry, my thoughts looping on repeat. L.S. Lisa Spencer? That shirt. Evan. The forest opened up into a clearing, and that's when I saw him. A man by a fire, crouched near a makeshift shelter. Relief hit me like oxygen. I stumbled forward. Hey, I need help," I called, my voice cracked and hoarse. He turned. For a second I saw confusion, then a flicker of something colder. Familiarity, recognition. He stood, slowly. "Claire?" I froze. "How, do you know me?" He didn't answer right away. He stepped into the light, and my stomach twisted. I knew that face. A bit older, rougher, thinner, but it was Jake Wilmer, Evan's best friend from high school, the one who'd supposedly moved to Oregon, the one who'd just stopped showing up. "Jake?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Didn't expect to see you out here." "What are you doing here?" I asked, backing a step. "Same thing you are, I guess. Surviving." The pause between his words stretched. Something about his tone, like he wasn't surprised to see me at all. "I'm lost," I said quickly. "My ankle's bad. Do you have a radio?" No signal out here. Closest ranger station's a day's walk. I turned slightly, trying to keep my distance. "Do you know where the main trail is?" "You're not far, but you should rest first." His hand twitched near his side, like he was debating something. I ran. He shouted my name, but I didn't stop. Pain screamed through my leg, and branches clawed at my arms. But I kept going, until my foot caught a root, and I hit the ground. Hard. I couldn't get up. My ankle screamed as I tried. Through the blur of tears and pine needles, I spotted a narrow crevice between two boulders. A small cave. I dragged myself inside, heart thudding, every breath sharp with fear. Jake didn't follow. At least not yet. The cave was damp, smelled of mould and earth. I crawled deeper, ignoring the cold soaking into my jeans. Then I saw it, something shoved between two stones. A spiral notebook, weather-worn but intact. I opened it with shaking hands, pages filled with cramped handwriting, a girl's voice, desperate, scared. The date stopped abruptly, 10 years ago, the same summer Lisa disappeared. Page after page detailed a camping trip with him. He brought her here, said she needed to learn how to live without the noise of the world. Then the warnings started. She wasn't allowed to leave. He hid her things, took her food, watched her sleep. I turned to the last page, just one sentence, scrawled in dark pencil. If you're reading this, Claire, run. The walls of the cave closed in, my name, in a dead girl's hand. I clutched the notebook to my chest and tried to breathe. Thunder cracked outside. The temperature plummeted. Rain pounded the forest. I curled into myself, trying to conserve warmth, but my clothes were soaked, my body trembling, thoughts unravelled, memories overlapped. A younger version of me standing on a dock, Evan holding my hand. "Don't lean too far," he said. I slipped, his grip loosened. I fell into the water, lungs full of fear, eyes wide open under the surface. I remembered him standing there, watching, not moving, until Mum screamed. Then he jumped in. I thought he saved me, but he waited. Lightning flashed, lighting the cave's entrance. I blinked. Was that a shadow? I couldn't tell anymore. My mind was slipping, spiraling. The cold hollowed out my strength, left room for fear and fragments, footsteps outside, a voice. Claire, not shouted, spoken, calm, patient. I pressed back into the rock, every muscle tight. "Where are you?" Evan called. "Everyone's worried." I didn't answer. He stepped into view. Not rushed, not frantic, composed. "Jesus, you scared the hell out of us," he said. I forced a cough, turned around. He crouched down, shining his flashlight in gently. His smile was soft, but his eyes, they were studying, measuring. "Let's get you back." I nodded, too weak to resist. But inside, something hardened. I wasn't going to die here, not by his hand. I leaned on him as we walked, feigning weakness. He took the bait. He liked control. He liked being the hero. Back at the fire, he gave me soup, warmed a blanket, whistled that goddamn tune. When he stepped away to get more wood, I dug into my boot, pulled out my backup phone. I hadn't turned it on in days, but the battery blinked, 10%. I typed quickly, hands shaking. If I die, it was Evan. I hit send to everyone and waited. I woke to birdsong and damp earth beneath my cheek. The fire was nothing but ash now. My body ached, but my mind felt clear. The cold was gone, burned out of me like rot. All that remained was something sharp, forged in fire. I sat up slowly, listening. He wasn't whistling now, but in my head, those 4 rising notes and one long fall echoed like a warning bell. That melody used to make me feel safe. Now it meant danger, control. Evan. I reached for the notebook from the cave, still tucked beneath my jacket. My fingers brushed the cover like it was holy scripture, my proof, my lifeline. I replayed everything in my head. Jake, the cave, Lisa, the stitched initials, the stories, the missing girls. My brother wasn't just cruel, he was practiced, calculated. I'd been the next chapter in his twisted little novel. But I wasn't going to be his ending. I closed my eyes and mapped the terrain. Dad used to make us study the range's layout every trip, a habit for safety. But it had stuck. There was a rocky ridge north of here. If I followed it east, I'd reach a bluff, one of the few places high enough for cell reception. I packed lightly, tied my boot tight, and hobbled forward. Every step was fire in my ankle, but pain was grounding, real, unlike the gaslit haze Evan had kept me in. 3 hours in, I heard footsteps again, but this time different, older, heavier. I ducked behind a boulder. He wasn't Evan. The man who emerged was ragged, sun-worn, with a thick grey beard and a pack made from stitched leather and tarps. He froze when he saw me. "You're real," he muttered, as if to himself. I stepped out slowly. "Please, don't run. I'm not dangerous." He didn't move then. "What's your name?" Claire Miller." He blinked. "Miller? Do you know Evan?" His eyes narrowed. "That name I remember." He motioned for me to sit, offered a flask of water. I drank carefully. "You're his sister," he said. "A few years back I saw him hiking out here. Brought a girl, red jacket, never saw her leave." I almost dropped the flask. "What do you mean?" "Same route, same bluff you're headed to. They argued, he left alone, girl never came back." "Did you tell anyone?" He shook his head. "No one listens to folks like me." "Will you tell me everything you remember?" He nodded. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice recorder, and hit record. His story wasn't long, but it was enough. Descriptions that matched Lisa. A timeline, details only someone present would know. I stopped the recording, thanked him, and asked if he'd be willing to testify if needed. His answer, "I've kept my silence too long." I continued to the bluff. By late afternoon, I reached it. Phone signal pulsed in the corner of the screen, 1 bar, then 2. I uploaded the audio file, photos of the journal, pictures of the shirt. I attached them all to an email and hit send. To a lawyer I once met during a teaching workshop. She specialised in abuse survivors. Then I opened my mother's email. Her password was easy, my birthday. She never changed it. The inbox was cluttered, but one thread stood out. Sent a few weeks ago, drafts between her and a contact named Dr. Marcus. I opened the most recent. My hands trembled. Subject, Evan. "We can't keep lying to Claire. She remembers more than she says. Another older email. If Claire ever finds out the full truth, she will never forgive us. We chose to protect him because we thought he was sick, not dangerous. We were wrong." My blood turned cold. I downloaded the entire thread. Then I set up a delayed email blast. Every file, every photo, every voice clip, scheduled to send to media outlets, law enforcement, and advocacy groups. If I didn't cancel within 12 hours, it would all go live. I stared at the sunset, holding the phone like a detonator. It wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about ending this. That night, I returned to camp. Evan greeted me like nothing had happened, soup on the fire, blanket waiting. "Feel better?" he asked. I nodded, but I watched every move, listened to every breath, memorized every tick of his behaviour. At dawn, the phone buzzed. Unknown number, I answered. "This is Officer Richards with Plumas County Sheriff. We received a tip. We're at the Miller residence. Is Evan Miller with you?" I turned to look across the camp. The tent was empty. His pack was gone. Only the fire remained, flickering gently as if nothing had ever been wrong. I didn't wait for the sheriff to call back. I activated the email blast. 12 hours later, the world knew everything. I launched the podcast under the name Whispers from the Woods. I recorded the first episode in one take, my voice steady, my hands shaking. I told the story as it was. No sugarcoating, no disclaimers. The misplaced items, the drawings, the stories Evan used to tell. Laced with hidden truths, the cave, the shirt, the journal. Then I added the voice recording from the hermit in the woods. I ended with one question. What if the person who hurt you most wore your last name? It exploded. Downloads soared. Within 48 hours, I was being interviewed on morning shows. People wanted to know how I survived, how I stayed calm. But I hadn't stayed calm. I had shattered, burned, rebuilt. The national manhunt for Evan began that same week. Plumas County declared him a fugitive, citing him as a person of interest in multiple disappearances. His face, once buried in old yearbooks and forgotten photo albums, now appeared on every major news outlet. Wanted. A week later, I received a message through the podcast inbox. No name, just a line. He did it to me too, but I survived. Call me. Attached was a voice memo. I listened. A woman, shaky, terrified, described a camping trip with Evan years ago. She was 17. Said he took her out to teach her strength. Said she escaped by breaking his nose with a flashlight and running barefoot 5 miles through the woods. But she never told anyone. No one would have believed her. He was the golden boy, the charmer, the brother who saved me from drowning. I reached out to her. Her name was Denise. She gave me permission to include her story in the next episode. We cried together, two strangers bound by survival and silence. Days later, an amateur archivist from a true crime forum sent me a scanned photo from 1998, a Boy Scout camp group shot. And there he was, Evan, lanky and smiling, with his arm around a girl labelled only as M. Holloway. That name, it echoed, Melissa Holloway, missing since July 1998. The resemblance between her and Lisa was eerie, the same dark eyes, same long braid. I forwarded the image to the authorities. It became the centerpiece of a reopened cold case. They started connecting dots, dates, locations, witnesses. And then came the video. An anonymous burner account messaged me a 20-second clip, grainy, handheld, time-stamped a few months ago. Evan, seated on a log, campfire flickering, his voice clear. They always think I'm serious. I'm just playing. They're just too weak to get the joke. He looked into the lens, laughing. I don't hurt people. They just break on their own. I threw up. That night I stayed off social media, but my phone kept buzzing. Calls, messages, death threats, support, rage, apologies from strangers. Then my father called. Your mother collapsed. She had a stress-induced cardiac event, triggered by the news, the pressure, the guilt. When she woke up 2 days later, I visited her in the hospital. Her face was pale, eyes sunken. She looked older than I'd ever seen her. She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, I'm sorry, Claire. It wasn't enough, but it was something. She admitted they'd known Evan was different, that he showed signs early, strange behaviours, manipulations, but therapy was shameful and they were scared. They thought protecting him meant protecting the family. She said she never imagined it would go this far, but I had, and I told her so. The next week, I was called to a secure law enforcement facility for a virtual deposition. Evan had been found. Not by police, by a wildlife camera deep in Oregon wilderness. They sent a drone and tracked him to an abandoned ranger station. He didn't resist arrest. He looked calm. They allowed me to speak to him, not in person, on a monitor in a white room with grey walls. He wore a county jumpsuit, but sat with perfect posture. He smiled when he saw me. Claire, he said, You look good. Famous. I didn't respond. Thank you, he added, eyes gleaming. You made me a legend. You made yourself a monster, I replied. He leaned back unbothered. They'll study me, you know. Podcasts, documentaries. I'm a story now. You're not a story, I said. You're evidence. He laughed, but I could see it, the shift, the twitch in his jaw, the tightness behind his smirk. He knew the power was gone. He no longer controlled the narrative. I leaned closer to the screen. You're not famous, I said. You're a file. He looked away. That night, I recorded the final episode of season 1. I didn't cry. I didn't dramatize. I just told the truth. Then I turned off the mic and sat in silence, letting it all settle. The world finally saw him. And he could never hide again. It took a year, a full year of trials, testimonies, reopened investigations, and courtroom silences so thick they could suffocate. Evan sat through it all with that same expression, somewhere between boredom and fascination. But his smirk began to fade when survivors took the stand, when Denise spoke, when the hermit from the woods pointed at him from across the room and said, "That's the boy I saw. That's the one." The prosecution connected Evan to 5 cold cases. 3 bodies were recovered, 2 weren't. But their names echoed through the courtroom like thunder. Lisa Spencer, Melissa Holloway, Tanya Green. The jury didn't take long. Evan was sentenced to life without parole. When the judge read the verdict, he didn't flinch, but he didn't smile either. He looked small. Finally, not the larger-than-life brother, not the predator in the woods, just a man, diminished, contained. Outside the courthouse, the media swarmed. Someone asked me, "Do you feel like justice was served?" I looked them straight in the eye and said, "Justice is a beginning, not an end." In the months that followed, I travelled not to escape, but to connect. I met other survivors, some from Evan's past, some from entirely different horrors. We cried together in hotel lobbies, shared stories over coffee, clutched hands during panic attacks. I found power in those moments, in hearing me too, and saying it back. The press started calling me the survivor from the woods. It felt strange at first, like a label. But then I realised it wasn't a title, it was a badge. Not of what happened to me, but of what I did next. So I wrote. My book, The Brother Who Hunted Me, hit shelves 6 months later. It wasn't just about Evan, it was about gaslighting, about family betrayal, about how trauma warps memory, twists love into something you can't always recognise. The response was overwhelming. Letters from people I'd never met thanking me for writing what they'd never dared say out loud. Teachers, therapists, teenagers, mothers, so many women, so many stories. I started a foundation, nothing fancy, just a safe space. A place where people could share, heal and rebuild. I called it The Bluff, named after the place where I'd finally found signal. Finally found my voice. We held workshops, story circles, survivor retreats. I led the first one myself. The theme was transformation through truth. And it wasn't just women. One man stood up, tears in his eyes, and said, "My father wasn't a killer, but he made me feel invisible every day. Your story helped me understand why I stopped speaking. In those moments, I knew I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. I even made peace with music again. That whistle, Evan's melody, used to haunt me. 4 rising notes, 1 long fall. But I decided it was mine now. I worked with a composer, told him I wanted to reclaim the sound. We turned it into something hauntingly beautiful, strings, piano, and distant echoes. It became the intro for my podcast's second season, now titled Whispers for the Wounded. No longer just my voice, but the voices of others. Each episode, a new story, each voice, a new survivor, and at the start of each one, the melody played, not as a warning, but as a signal of strength, a reminder that the past can't be undone, but it can be rewritten. I moved to the coast, bought a small house with too many windows and a porch that faced the sunrise. Some mornings, I sat with my tea, journal open, listening to the birds. I thought of the forest sometimes, not as a place of terror anymore, but as the crucible where I was forged. People ask if I ever think about Evan, if I visit him. I don't. I have no questions left for him. I only look forward. My family, what's left of it anyway, scattered. My father stopped calling. My mother, we speak sometimes. She's in therapy now, trying. That's all I ask. My new family is here. The women who text me at midnight, the volunteers who laugh too hard at inside jokes. The podcast listeners who send art, poems, music. We built something from ash. And I've never felt more whole. I keep the journal from the cave in a shadow box on my desk. Not as a relic of pain, but as a tribute to her, to them, to the ones who didn't make it out. But I did, and that matters. I once wrote a line in my book, just 6 words. They left me to die there, but the sentence didn't end there. It finishes here with what I know now, what I carry, what I became. They left me to die there, but I walked out, a new person.